If this game isn't a masterpiece, it's as close as I've come to playing one. I've played the Resident Evil 4 remake 3 times at this point. The first time left me breathless. The second time was a desperate attempt to recapture that experience. And as you know, you can only do something for the very first time once, sadly. And the third time was to make this video. Now my entry-level gaming laptop just feels so much cooler and fine-tuned for having this game on it. It looks amazing and it runs like a dream. And let's just be honest, this game wouldn't exist if way back in 2005 Capcom didn't craft one of the best games ever made. The original Resident Evil 4 was and still is to this very day one hell of a game. So saying there were some big ass shoes to fill straight off the bat is pretty much a given at this point. Would it live up to the hype? Would it be as good or even yet better than the original? Or would it be another Resident Evil 3 remake on our hands? Serviceable at best to newcomers, but ultimately a disappointment to ardent hardcore fans. This was a deep concern as Resident Evil 4 is such a special game to many gamers. In fact, it's not a stretch to say it's probably one of the most influential games to be released for this and many more genres. Another game I dearly love, a sentiment shared by many. Dead Space from 2008 took direct influence from Resident Evil 4. Glenn Schofield, the game's director, going as far as to say that he wanted to recreate Resident Evil 4 but in space. Back in 2005, Resident Evil 4 revolutionized modern gaming with its over-the-shoulder perspective, its over-the-top story, and badass Leon one-liners. Now earlier this month, I made a video about the problem with modern gaming, and I'll post a link to that in the description of this video. In that video, I highlighted that the original Resident Evil 4 as well as the original Dead Space were pretty much the best games I had played so far in 2023. Because other than remakes or Sony ports to PC, all other new games had been phenomenally, superbly, or more aptly, super shittily subpar to say the very least. Then there was Resident Evil 4 Remake. But what made it so good? So let's get into it. So sit down, strap in, let's go! The hype train came steaming in, and to a certain degree, it's still at the station, ladies and gents. The hype for this game was off the charts. To say that there was a decent level of excitement would be an epic understatement at this point in time. Lots of voices in the gaming industry, be it reviewers, YouTubers, influencers, you name it, grew up with Resident Evil 4 as one of their childhood darling games. And for good reason. The week or two leading to Resident Evil 4 Remake's release, it was everywhere. Adverts, articles, and videos, all just spelling out one thing: hype. To say that this game was well reviewed would be the biggest understatement this century. GameStop, GameRanks, IGN, you name it, all of these gave this game either a 10 out of 10 or as close to it as you could find. For some, that could be a massive big red flag, but for once, critics, reviewers, and consumers' opinions seem to be aligned. A match made in heaven. Something almost unheard of these days. Guys, as you know, games in 2023, barring perhaps the Dead Space remake, have been an absolute dumpster fire of mediocrity. Whether it be stutter, bad CPU optimization, long shader compilation, 2023 has been a battle zone of subverted by expectations. This wasn't the case for Resident Evil 4 Remake, It was seamless. It ran like a dream from launch. Give or take 1 or 2 stutters in-game, no shader compilation, no game-breaking FPS drops. It just worked. Now I've already mentioned just how impactful the original game was. It changed the face of gaming back in 2005. In 2023, however, it gave the game a fresh coat of freaking awesome paint, modern mechanics, and most importantly, no tank controls. Now don't get me wrong, I still love the original, tank and all, but this is one of the areas the remake pulls away miles and miles ahead. Other than omitting sections that wouldn't match the darker tone of the remake, it stayed relatively true to the source material, thank God. It's so much fun to compare the old game and the remakes, same locations, just to see how they match up. Whether it is walking into the cabin at the very start of the game, or fighting to stay alive in the village, or fighting for that matter to stay alive in the valley, to running up to the graveyard followed by the church, and encountering the crazed villagers in the fish yard, or peering over the cliff at the edge of the lake. Comparing, or at the very least being excited to see the more detailed and modern take on these iconic scenes and locations is quite thrilling, to say the least. The graphics and the RE engine are off the freaking charts. Whether it's the shadows on the rocks and the surfaces in the dark, to the lake caves, the church scene just before you save Ashley, the village night wet surfaces, or the jetty when it's raining. The castle is so damn impressive. It's beautifully detailed, rich in color, and so gorgeous. And the island is wet, it's gritty, it looks great. Now the graphics are fantastic, I think, but I think I've said enough. They just are incredible. Leon is such a cool protagonist. Of that, there is no debate. Everyone and their collective dog has at this point in time mentioned his iconic one-liners. Now some of them didn't make their way to the remake, but the ones we have are legendary.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
Such a fool, Mr. Kennedy. To have been bestowed with Lord Sadler's.
You talk too much.
It failed. You fool. That lesson starts right now.
No. Time for the teacher to be taught.
Such confidence. Bring it, rookie!
Not only the one-liners, but he's also super capable, super reliable, super loyal, and super at the superplex. Quite frankly, he is cool as fuck. And the hair, he's got one badass mop of hair. If you learn the combat mechanics and deeply study the art of war. No, I'm just kidding. The combat mechanics aren't hard to master, but once you do master them, you can feel just like John Wick. Leon has an array of moves that can incapacitate, maim, and downright slaughter his enemies. Now, the Resident Evil 4 remake allows for incredible freedom in combat. So much so that going back and replaying Resident Evil 2 remake feels downright restrictive. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love Resident Evil 2 remake, but in this regard, Resident Evil 4 puts its combat to shame. In this game, the movements feel weighty and purposeful. If you're going to spend a majority of your time playing a game, walking or running, you damn well better make sure those mechanics feel good. And boy oh boy, did this game knock it out of the park. Another area that it absolutely pulls miles ahead of the original. This game has easily got some of the best and most iconic characters in gaming. First we have Leon. He's buff, he's got good hair, he's loyal, he's lethal, and he has some of the best goddamn one-liners in gaming. What's not to like? Then we have Ashley. Now, where she's not as much of a damsel in distress as she was in the first game, keeping her alive whilst the task at higher difficulties is not as much of a pain as it was in the original. To boot, they also have great chemistry, even though at first...
My name's Leon. I'm hearing the president's orders and... That went well.
Then we have Ada. Now, Ada is easily one of the biggest sex symbols in gaming, in my honest opinion. She's sexy as fuck, and boy does Capcom really lean into this. And we're all the better for it. But she's also just not over-sexualized. She's capable, she's sensual, she's intelligent, she's devious, she's ruthless, and she's independent as all hell. And that brings us to Luis. At first I thought he was a scumbag, but throughout the game I realized he has a really good heart and is easily one of the best characters in the game. I was really sad to lose him towards the latter part of the campaign. Another big bonus is the fact that there are absolutely no politics. There's no underlying message or lecturing or posturing, etc., etc. ad nauseum. It's a non-factor. It's neutral, but mostly it's just a hell of a lot of fun. Kudos, Capcom. And the most important reason, and I saved it for the end for good reason, the merchant. Hello, stranger. Gun rhymes with fun. You're damn right it does. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to smash that like button. If you're still watching and you haven't subscribed at this point in time, now's the time to do so. Other than that, guys, enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a good week. Cheers.